Hey guys, it's Bridget with San Diego Seed Company, and it is November, and I am in the chili garden. It feels so good. And we're gonna talk about some really neat greens that you may or may not have grown before. So bok choy, tatsoi, mustard greens. There's tons of different varieties of Asian greens that may be new to you, but they're really fun to grow, and I'm gonna tell you why they're awesome to grow in the fall and winter garden. Before I get to that, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you're notified anytime we put out a video and so that we can help you become a better gardener. Okay, so I'm originally from Kansas, and I'm not gonna lie, I never saw a green or a vegetable like this in our grocery stores there. So when I moved to California, I was fascinated at all the new and different greens that were available to me at the grocery store or the farmer's market. And one of my favorite types of food to eat is Thai food. Love Thai food. And so naturally, I became very familiar with bok choy, tatsoi, Asian cabbage, all of the dark leafy greens that can be found in a lot of Thai cooking, Japanese cooking, all kinds of different recipes that call for stuff that you might not be familiar with. Now, I love growing new and interesting stuff, so it was a very quick turnaround before it became a staple in my garden. But one of the reasons why I want to share it with you is because it has two really awesome qualities. So we're in November, and it's chilly. Like, I actually have a sweater on for the first time. And I know for those of you who are outside zone 9 and 10 and have like a foot of snow, don't be mad at me. It's like 65 degrees, maybe a little bit chillier here. But for us in zone 9 and 10, it's like fall is actually here. Winter is coming. And one of the things I love about growing these greens is they do really well in a garden that has extreme weather changes. So our days can go up to, I mean, the other day we had it was a 91-degree day, so it was very hot. But morning time is very chilly, and also nighttime temperatures get really low. These greens are very, very resilient. In fact, they're one of the first greens that I plant in the fall garden when we still have very hot temperatures. They can withstand very warm temperatures more than most leafy greens. And they also can withstand just the changes. So it's a very hard time to be in the garden in zone 9 and 10 for your vegetable plants, because it'll be 90 degrees and then it'll be 60 degrees. We just have a lot of big changes in temperatures, which can be very difficult. Now, if you love dark leafy greens, these are a really great plant for you to grow. And another quality that I love about them is they grow very quickly. So these guys will be ready in about a month. I'm not going to let them get very big. This is actually a miniature variety. So I will actually only let them get about this big. I will harvest them at the base level right here. I'll take a little knife and I will actually cut it. And then I will throw that whole thing in a soup. I can put the whole thing in a stir fry. It's very delicious. The greens are tender and the ribs are juicy and crunchy and actually hold up in cooking, which makes them really awesome. They're just all around a very neat plant. Now, many of you guys have heard me say the term cut and come again, which is very common when you're talking about greens. Unfortunately, this is not a crop that you can actually cut and it will regrow. If you cut it down here at the base, it's done. If you cut it above the base, you're losing out on this delicious center part right here where all the ribs come together, where it's very crunchy and delicious and really holds up in a stir fry or a soup. So if you're going to grow this plant, it's best to plant them out knowing that you might want to succession plant a couple different rows, because once you harvest them, they will be done. As you can see, this row, what looks different? Where's Waldo, right? What is different in this row of plants? Well, you'll see that we have a bok choy and then we actually have a cabbage. Now, I interplanted these, and why was that possible? Because these greens are so quick to be ready and mature, they're going to be done well before my cabbages are. And as my cabbages get bigger, I'll continue to harvest these to make room for my cabbage plants, which will get very, very big. So that was an easy way for me to do it. And the thought process behind that was pretty simple. I only had a few cabbage plants. I had a whole tray of the bok choy. And so I went through and decided to plant them that way. This is a great example of interplanting or even companion planting, because these guys, as they get bigger, they're naturally going to start to almost shade these greens which is perfectly fine and not at all going to hurt them. They're really almost going to complement each other. I will harvest these pretty quickly because I want to eat them at the yummy, young, tender stage. But if I were to let them get really big, these plants would almost complement them in that they shade them. So it's a really good example of interplanting or companion planting. Now, even though I only have one type of Asian green in my garden right now, there's tons of different varieties out there. There's mustard greens, all kinds of Mizuna mustards, or Mizuna mustards. There's Tatsoi, there's bok choy, there's Asian cabbage. There's so many different varieties, and they're all really awesome relatives of cabbages, brassicas, oleracées, is the big family. And it's really amazing to see the diversity of one particular family of crops and how many different kinds that you can get from them. If you are a lover of greens in general and you make lots of stir fries or salads or soups or anything like that, I really recommend you give it a try because they do have a total different flavor profile. In fact, tatsoi, which is the little like greens that look like spoons, when they're exposed to a lot of heat, so when you plant them in early fall and it's still warm, or late spring and it's starting to get warm, they actually take on like a spicy wasabi-like flavor, which is amazing and a great addition to many dishes. So anyways, how did I plant them and how can you grow these guys? Well, there's a couple different ways you can do it. I recommend actually starting these in a tray. You can direct sow them. However, it's very easy to germinate in a tray. They transplant out super easy. And so it's something that you can get up and growing in a tray. You can plant it out with perfect spacing and avoid the thinning and the loss of plants that naturally happens when you direct sow. It's a very easy crop to plant anytime during the year when the days are getting shorter. And that's an important note there because they will grow very big and put lots of roots in the ground, and you'll get lots of vegetative matter as the days get shorter. They won't immediately go to flower. Now that is a common characteristic of any green. If you plant lettuce a couple weeks before the longest day of the year, you'll notice what is it going to do? Almost immediately it's going to go to flower. That's happening because the sun is telling the plant, hey, we're coming up on the longest day of the year. After that, fall is coming, so you need to flower and set your seeds and your progeny into the universe. So it's a very natural process. So I like to plant these in the fall. It's one of the first plants I plant in the fall because it's so resilient and just really a hardy leafy green. So I plant them in the fall, and I will actually succession plant these all the way until really late winter. At that point, I've got so many crops in the garden, I barely have room for anything else, but you can grow these well into the spring. As I mentioned, they are heat tolerant, so if we get warm temperatures in the spring, they will continue to thrive as long as they're watered. You have really good soil. And the other key part of growing any plant in the fall in zone 9 and 10 or any area that's really hot is using some type of protection. If you look through my garden, you can see it looks like I've had a sleepover because there's weird blankets everywhere. These are different types of fabrics that I use to protect my plants from excessive UV light and heat. So this is shade cloth, and you can tell that I had all of this covered. And I did that because the days get pretty hot, and this also is going to help with evaporation of moisture from the soil. So it's going to help me keep the soil moist longer so that if I happen to, maybe I don't have the irrigation on enough, or I forget to water, this is going to give me a little bit more leeway and ensure that there's moisture in the soil. When you're planting in zone 9 and 10 specifically in the fall, one of the biggest and hardest struggles you have to deal with is keeping soil moist when we have very hot temperatures. Particularly Santa Ana's, when the winds are blowing, very dry winds are blowing from the east to the west, from the desert to the coast, they're sucking moisture out of the plants and out of the soil. By using something like shade cloth or row cover, it can help hold in a little bit of that moisture and block out a little bit of that UV light. It's really go-to product, been using it for years, and it is what helps me become the next level gardener. We use it on our commercial farm and we use it here in the garden. So remember guys, the plant kingdom and the things that we can eat and grow in the garden is so vast. It is so much more than what you see at the grocery store shelves or even at a farmer's market. And one of the ways in which you can enjoy and actually have access to some of these neat greens is by planting them from seed. So whether it's an Asian green or whether it's a green from a different part of the world or any type of plant, I really implore you to explore in the garden, plant new different crops, and enjoy the beauty of harvesting something that you've never grown before.